to thank Senator Chambers for poking us all on this particular issue, because the Garda Reserve is a very valuable resource in this country that is absolutely not tapped into. And thank you, Senator Victor Boyne, for your contribution. But this is an issue that Senator Michael McDowell has been raising for the last number of years, and nothing has been done. Absolutely nothing has been done on this. And the Garda Commissioner has done nothing on it. That is the reality of it. I mean, it's now a depleted force. I think there's about 300 people in our Garda Reserve programme at this moment in time. And from the age of 18 to 60, you can enter the Garda Reserve. I think it is a voluntary role, but I think if you do more than, I think it's 200 hours, you can get a contribution of €1,000 towards probably expenses or whatever, something like that. I think that's actually part of the scheme as well. But there's no reason why these people can't be doing administrative roles. And there's no reason why you can't bring retired Gardaís back and maybe give them a tax rebate on their pension or something like that to take up some reserve Garda roles. There's loads of ways that you can increase participation in the Garda Reserve programme, but there doesn't seem to be a will to do that. So whether it's yourself, Minister, or whether it's the Garda Commissioner, I think you need to do a lot more to increase the numbers that we have within our Garda Reserve force at this moment in time. And they may lead on to joining the Gardaí down the line, but they may not. But it's a very, very valuable resource that this government is not tapping into, nor is the Garda Commissioner, and you need to find out why. And if not, why not? And what's it going to do about it? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Minister. Yeah. I better after all of that. I meant after all of the I meant after all of the contributions.
I'd say 3 words will cover you.
Just to, I suppose, support senators and agree with them that I think the Reserve play a really important role in supporting An Garda Síochána in their own right, but obviously in assisting them in their work. I think when we look at the overall workforce in An Garda Síochána, it's our frontline Gardaí, it's civilian staff, but also our reserve, and I think we need to look at the numbers overall, all 3 areas. Senators are right, obviously the numbers have dropped, so while our Garda numbers accelerated, they've dropped during COVID because of the closure of the college to new recruits. Our civilian staff have continued to increase, but the reserve has not continued in the same way. The last competition that we had was 2017. There was to be a newer competition, but it was decided that there needed to be a review of the regulations that we had, because it hadn't taken place for some time. So that review has already taken place, looking at the role and the duty of the Garda Reserve as they support and complement the work of the Gardaí. Following on from that review, there were new regulations that are being developed. There was engagement taking place with all of the relevant associations. That engagement has already happened, and so I will be in a position to open up, or the Commissioner will be in a position, we will be in a position to open up a new competition early in the new year, and that will coincide with a new recruitment campaign for An Garda Síochána more broadly. At the moment, you have a situation where if somebody does over 208 hours, I think, per annum, they can be remunerated up to €1,000, but obviously the reserve is a voluntary position and it's just to cover costs where they might incur them in terms of travel or other types of expenses. So there is work being done. There has been work to review the overall role of the reserve, and that's resulted in new regulations which we'll be able to sign off shortly. It will be a new recruitment campaign then early in the new year, and obviously the more that we have applying for that, the more that they can support the work of An Garda Síochána more generally. But again, support very much the role of the Garda Reserve and hope to see new recruits in the new year, because I do think many of them do then go on to become Gardaí, and obviously it's an opening mark for many of them. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And look, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the difficulty you've had in relation to getting trainees on board. It's a really, really hard. But you know, you've got to make it a job worth applying for. When it comes to trainees, and the remuneration is really, really important, but also having proper pension. I mean, they are on the post-2013 pension, and if you're a guard joining now compared to someone that joined in 2012, you're not getting the same pension. So there's an inequality there for the new Gardaí coming in. So that's something that I I'd like you to look at in relation to pensions. Can you make it more attractive? Also, I did suggest to the Commissioner when he was down in the committee room before you came in, I suggested, can you look at the Garda stations around particularly in the Dublin area? If you are putting a trainee Gardaí into Dublin, it's important that maybe you look at one of those Garda stations that you might have that might be used for accommodation for the Gardaí. that instead of having to travel from Cork or Galway or wherever they're coming from, that accommodation would be there. Do you need all the stations that you have in Dublin at this moment in time? Is there a station there that could be looked at? Is there room at the station, a station there that could be built onto, where you could provide a certain number of rooms there for Gardaí to live at during the week or during the weekends? I'm sure it could be looked at. I don't think we need all the Garda stations and buildings. We need foot soldiers on the ground. So maybe that's something that you could look at with the Commissioner to see if you could provide accommodation, particularly in the cities of the more expensive cities, the cities of Dublin, the cities of Cork and the cities of Galway. Thank you.
And Tara Liddell.
Very briefly, in terms of the timeline, it's not possible to give a definitive timeline. If somebody applies and you have a significant number that apply, obviously they have to go through the initial process, but if someone fails the fitness, fails the medical, if there's an issue around vetting abroad, you can't say whether someone will come back from another police jurisdiction in a matter of weeks or months, so it's very hard to put a timeline on it, but obviously we would like a process to be done as quickly as possible. In terms of the challenge that we have for members that are maybe allocated to Dublin, what I get back a lot is actually that those who serve in Dublin first, that they have more experience than anybody, particularly in some of the rural areas, and that obviously the experience that they have is very welcome when they are then potentially transferred further out. This issue around rent, and I don't for a second diminish the challenges that people have where they are based in Dublin and they have to live in Dublin, but it's very hard to look at how you would apply that, be it for Gardaí, nurse or anybody else. You might have somebody living in my own county in Meath that's able to travel up and down, but they're stationed in Dublin. Do they then get... So, I mean, look, to Senator Keogan's point, I don't think we have any stations that are sitting idle or that are not being used or not necessary. And in fact, we're renovating, obviously, stations, not just in Dublin and reopening them, but across the country as well. So,
buildings and office commercial spaces.
So, again, I suppose, how do you... I suppose it's how do you look at who takes up this accommodation? It's not something that's been looked at the moment actively. I suppose that's what I would say. It's not something that's been looked at actively. How you would apply it, who gets the accommodation, for what length of time, does it apply just to Gardaí? I suppose there's a series of questions that would have to be answered there.
Sorry, the Minister will reply. The Minister will reply.
I think that's a lot of the questions, to be honest. In terms of pensions, obviously this is a role for the Department of Finance or Public Expenditure and Reform. Any changes to pensions for Gardaí, there would have to be changes more broadly across the public sector. Obviously there's ongoing discussions and negotiations with the various different unions at the moment, and that's where it would be best dealt with, I think, more broadly. Thank you.